You might think these games sucked, but they deserve a second chance to be great. Hey, it's Just the Gems, I'm Brandon, and I love a good 7 out of 10 JRPG. What do I mean by that? Well, if you ask the average gamer on the internet, a 7 out of 10 game is one that deserves nothing but derision at the worst, or complete indifference at best. With so many amazing games out there, who has time to waste on something that's not the pinnacle of perfection? I can sympathize with that. I mean, no one has unlimited time and money, except billionaires. I think they're drinking kid blood to make themselves immortal. I heard that on Reddit. But most of us just can't afford to take those kinds of chances. I mean, chances on playing less than perfect games, not chances on the kid blood thing. Although realistically, both, right? Both. But still, there are some actually really solid 7 out of 10 games and series that deserve a second chance to be great. Whether it's through a remake or a new entry, these are games and series that are 100% redeemable with maybe just a few tweaks. Developers, please take notes. Man, words cannot describe how excited I was for Xenosaga Episode 1. As the world's biggest lover of Xenogears, who had pretty much fallen into despair when a sequel was never greenlit at Square, this felt like a second chance. And titling it Episode 1 just set my imagination on fire. Like, I knew the grand overarching plot of Xenogears was divided into episodes, of which Xenogears itself was Episode 5. Did this mean Takahashi was taking us back to the beginning and telling this story chronologically? How on earth did he get permission from Square to do that? Well, I don't know the ins and outs of how it all went down, but I have to imagine it was okay because he did change enough to make it pretty well disconnected from Xenogears. You can definitely see similar threads being woven, but I think if the series had continued, the tapestry would have looked pretty different by the time we got to a hypothetical Xenosaga Episode 5. But regardless of its connection to Xenogears, this was an epic, story-first JRPG set in the future, which was a setting that was sorely unexplored in JRPGs, at least back then. We had, Star Ocean the Second Story on PS1? Is that it? That might have been it. So a cool, twisty, philosophical sci-fi story was right up my alley. And I knew it was going to be all philosophical just like Xenogears. I mean, the game's freaking subtitle was Der Wille zur Macht, which is a book by freaking Nietzsche. Okay, so how do we take this series that unfortunately did not set the world on fire and make it into a juggernaut? Well, interestingly, I think Takahashi has already kind of figured out how to do that through making the Xenoblade games. As much as I personally love the hour-long cutscenes we get in Xenosaga, most people are going to balk at that. So while we'll still get lengthy scenes in Xenoblade, they're not as massive and they're spread out with more gameplay in between. Also, making the game world more interesting and varied with more things to do helped keep your average player from getting bored. And yet, it still manages to tell a weighty philosophical story. Now, I've said before, I'm not the biggest fan of the combat in Xenoblade. I don't like MMO-style fighting in general, so I wouldn't want a remake of Xenosaga to adopt that, even if it's sort of become the trademark Xeno style now. But a refined turn-based system would be fantastic, something that incorporates the Xeno series mechs in a bit better than the originals did. With the backing of Nintendo and the blessing of Bandai Namco, I think Xenosaga is actually the series that has the best chance of getting another swing at it, so I really hope Takahashi and the team at Monolith Soft are cooking up something great. I'm listing the last story because it's the one I played, but really this could apply to any of the earlier Mistwalker titles from Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, because they were all tied to one specific and now defunct console, meaning it's super hard to play them today. The last story is an appropriate title coming from Sakaguchi, given that it's essentially just the name Final Fantasy run through with Thesaurus, but the gameplay couldn't be more different. This is almost a squad-based tactical action game where you lead your squad in real-time combat with a bunch of enemies and issue orders to them while you hack and slash away. The story was interesting, if not incredibly exciting. You play as a mercenary who's arrived on an island to find a bunch of political intrigue happening. You fall in love with a noblewoman, and there's a bunch of backstabbing and general drama. I think a more gritty and grounded story like this from the creator of Final Fantasy is cool, and it definitely allowed him to stretch stretch his creative muscles. What would I change about this game other than making it available on all consoles? This is one that I think a full-on reboot would be necessary for. You can keep the premise and even the characters, but it's going to need a complete overhaul if it's going to be worthy of a seat at the table with the other great games Mistwalker's made. First and foremost, the visual presentation. This came out in the Wii PS3 era when every game looked like you were viewing it through a muddy camera lens. Just blurry textures and so much brown. And speaking of blurry textures, I mean, yeah, this game wasn't even on the PS3, it was on the Wii, so the hardware was even less powerful, meaning the browns looked even worse. On the gameplay front, I think there's a lot of promise there, so make some tweaks, sure, but don't fix what isn't broken. It's cool that your party members can act independently, though you can definitely give them orders, and your main character has an ability that can draw every enemy's attention to you, so that your team can go all out without getting wailed on. There's some stealth elements in there that could probably stay, I guess, so long as they're brought up to modern standards and aren't too punishing. I do think the story could use a revision. It's not bad, but it's also pretty far down on the list of the best Sakaguchi works. I think with all the time that's passed, he could give us something better. Of course, Sakaguchi is famously averse to revisiting old works, so this one seems pretty unlikely to happen, which is a real shame. The Mistwalker games should get more attention. I'm gonna be blunt about this one. This is not a 7 out of 10 game. This is like a 2 out of 10. 3 at best. It's a nightmare. Playing it is the equivalent of dragging your nails across a chalkboard and staring directly into an eclipse whilst being submerged in a vat of wet hair. It's literally the most unpleasant experience I've had playing a video game, and I'm not kidding or exaggerating or trying to be edgy. This game is atrocious. However, there is so much promise in this game, and I think that's why it hurts so much to see it fail so fully. Let's start with the art style. This is as close as we've come to an anime that you play. Others have tried it, notably Time and Eternity on the PS3, another noble failure, but visually, Loop 8 wins. It's remarkable to see it in motion. And the storyline premise, being stuck looping through the month of August while trying to save the world from destruction at the hand of evil aliens, that's cool. You can make a good story out of that. Groundhog Day meets Independence Day. I mean, I guess I'm actually just describing Edge of Tomorrow, starring Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, but this is set in a sleepy Japanese town, so it's like The Sixth Sense versus The War of the Worlds, that sort of thing. So what would need to change in order to make this a winner? First of all, the gameplay. Wandering around town and talking to characters, having them join you seemingly at random and then leave you also seemingly at random is not a fun gameplay loop. Admittedly, I was only able to stomach an hour or so of this game, so maybe it changes, but you feel so aimless in the beginning. There's not a strong, inciting incident. The combat when you manage to get to a battle isn't very engaging either. And the load times. Good God, there's loading before and after everything. At least on the Switch, where I played it. But man alive, it was terrible. And don't get me started on seeing the same little cutscenes play out after you complete certain tasks over and over and over again. It's atrocious. It might sound like I'm being hard on this game, but those of you who have played it know what I'm talking about. So what does that mean? It means the same graphic styling and story setup, but with a more urgent and driving plot, better and less nonsensical gameplay, and optimization to make sure it actually runs like a game made in the 2020s. It's too bad that its reception likely means that the game is dead in the water, because I really think with a little work, it could actually be a really solid JRPG. I guess we can keep our fingers crossed, but I know including Chrono Cross on this list is going to upset the subset of crosses greater than trigger gamers, and I'm sorry about that, but to me, Chrono Cross is a straight 7 out of 10 game. That 7 does a lot of heavy lifting though. The music, the graphics, the overall story, I love it all. Even the combat, despite being really strange and never replicated, I think it's pretty cool. A definite start to what could have become a trademark of the Chrono series if it had continued. I also love the audacity of Chrono Cross's story. The idea of creating an entire freaking game to tie up one little loose end from Chrono Trigger is such a big swing. And if you know me, you know that I respect the hell out of big swings, even when they miss. And try and put yourself in my shoes. As a kid that absolutely loved Chrono Trigger and wanted nothing more than a sequel, we finally got it, and I adored getting to see the world of my favorite game continue. I absolutely reveled in the little nods and references to the original game, and I fell in love with the soundtrack even before the game came out, because my little 90s teenager butt somehow figured out how to import it. I don't have any idea how I did that. I have no memory of doing it, but I did it. After I finished Chrono Cross, though, I just didn't feel that sense of exaltation that I felt after completing Chrono Trigger. I felt empty. A re-envisioning of Chrono Cross would turn this into another Chrono Trigger level 10 out of 10, and it wouldn't take a ton. For starters, we need to get rid of the characters, almost all of them. Most of them are either goofy as heck or just not important to the overall story. And out of the 40-ish playable goofballs you can recruit, only like 2 of them have any meaningful part in the story. That's a travesty, and it robs the game of having a lovable and relatable cast. Give us a core team of like 7, maybe 8 people. Surge can be one, Kid can be one. Let's get Guile in there and finish the story that started in the secret ending of Chrono Trigger DS by having him regain his memories as Magus. Glenn can join in, maybe Norris, General Viper's daughter, what's her name? Riddell, that's it. 1 or 2 more characters, your choice, just not Starkey, not the goofy alien in the fishbowl helmet. No, stop it. And you know how I mentioned only like 2 of the game's cast has any significance to the actual story? Freaking Starkey is one of them. Starkey plays a key role in the advancement of the plot. It's so freaking stupid. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. What was I saying? Right, the characters. So give us a solid party, give them dialogue, make us care about them. The story doesn't have to change much, but I would request that the end game stuff be worked into the plot a bit better. If you played Chrono Cross, you know that when you're nearing the end, everything kind of just gets set aside, and the game's like, okay, now you've got to do this thing that's related to Chrono Trigger. Don't worry too much about how it's related to everything else that just happened. They could make a lot of improvements there. Add in a few refinements to the battle system, like maybe make it so you miss a bit less with standard attacks, please. And you have a masterpiece. Oh, keep the soundtrack the same. Don't change a thing. I would call Blue Reflection a 7 out of 10 game, but I'd actually call the sequel, Second Light, more like an 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5. It's a big step up, and it suggests to me that the developers know that they're onto something, and they're gradually moving up into masterpiece territory, which is why it's disheartening that we haven't heard a word about any new Blue Reflection games in development. In fact, the only thing I've heard recently was the composer for the series, the genius Hayato Asano, lamenting that it looked like he would never get to work with the Blue Reflection team again. I don't know what that means exactly, but it sounds ominous, right? Anyway, Blue Reflection as a series captures this latent sense of nostalgia that's always been bubbling away within me, but never really found its way out in other ways. I can play a game set in a high school, like Persona 5 Royal, but it doesn't make me feel nostalgic for my childhood. I can play Earthbound and run around towns as a kid with psychic powers, but it doesn't make me miss playing make-believe on the playground with my friends. But Blue Reflection somehow captures the feel of being a lonely teenager in the most beautiful, heartbreaking way. It does it through understated music, subtle lighting, so many quiet moments where things are just allowed to be. It just feels so good to play these games. I already mentioned the genius level music, but the gameplay is excellent too. It's turn-based, and it takes a page from Grandia with characters and enemies moving along a timeline, giving you the ability to delay enemy turns with well-timed attacks. It's a really cool battle system, and even more so in Second Light, where they refined it even more. What would need to change to give this series the shot in the arm it needs to succeed on a much larger scale? Well, honestly, I think it just needs to come out with another game. Blue Reflection was a great proof of concept for Gust, showing that they could make a magical girl JRPG set in a school and really nail the things that matter most. Blue Reflection's Second Light is iteration done right. They refined all the gameplay, added new elements that elevate the whole experience, improved the dungeon design and character interactions and the battle system. It took Blue Reflection's B and made it an A. Keep traveling on that trajectory, and they're going to have an S-tier game on their hands when Blue Reflection third, whatever they call it. If they make it and they're true to the path the series has been treading, it's going to be fantastic. I've made it my personal mission to get as many people as possible to play Harvestella. Thank you to everyone who has left a comment on a video or messaged me on Twitter or come up to me at a convention to tell me that I was able to convince you to give it a chance. That really means so much for me to hear. But the fight goes on, at least until every JRPG fan has at least tried this near masterpiece of a game. This is another one that I'd actually probably rank 8 out of 10 personally. The music, the gorgeous art design, the characters, the story. This is a game that has 100% nailed all the aesthetic elements. Also, despite being marketed as a farming game, it's really more of an action RPG that has some farming elements in it. The farming is maybe 10% of the game at most, and you can probably spend even less time on it if you really wanted to. The farming elements themselves are good, don't get me wrong, but they weren't the reason I wanted to play the game, or any game, really. So I was afraid at first that they'd be a detriment. They're not. If I love this game so much, why is it on this list? What would I change about it? Well, the combat is a little on the stiff side. It feels like it should play as more of a fast-paced action RPG, but you don't even get a simple dodge until a ways into the game, and even then, it's not a super effective dodge. The job system it gives you is cool, but a little underbaked too. I never personally ran into issues with the time system. By that I mean you only have so much time in a day to complete tasks or risk passing out and having to pay the doctor to revive you. But I know it bugged some people. It's really very forgiving, especially compared to the demo they released before launch, which was apparently brutal. So if your only experience with the game is the demo and you hated that element, maybe give the full game a chance. Still, those are some big challenges to overcome to make a prospective Harvestella 2 a winner. Get somebody like Platinum Games on the combat, refine the job system to make it a bit more useful, either eliminate or give us even more time in any kind of a time system, and I think Harvestella becomes a minor tentpole series for Square Enix. And make sure Shina is still doing the music. That man just absolutely crushed this soundtrack. It is literally my favorite OST. It's so good. Square Enix, can we get a vinyl of that, please? Pretty please? We're moving now into the trifecta of Furyu games, starting with the Caligula Effect. Now, full disclosure, there is a sequel to this game that I haven't played, but looking at the Metacritic scores, going up only 1 point doesn't make me think that the series is being steered in a super positive direction, so I'm comfortable talking about it here. You play as a high schooler who finds yourself stuck inside a simulation. That's not some kind of a twist you didn't see coming, it's basically a known fact right out of the gate. For whatever reason, you and a bunch of other people are trapped here, and for the moment, everyone's happy with that. The system AI is keeping everyone complacent through the power of catchy J-pop performed by a group of traders known as the Ostinato Musicians. You and some others who are aware of your predicament form the Go Home Club with the goal to do what the name of the club says. It's not shrouded in layers of symbolism. They want out. They want to go home. The Go Homers have help in the form of Aria, one of the AIs who was in control of the virtual world, but who now opposes the other rogue AI who's keeping everyone trapped. The story explores some pretty heavy themes, something I appreciate in Furyu's games, and even though there are maybe too many characters, there are some genuinely good ones here. The gameplay is one of the most unique I've seen in the genre. Essentially, when you enter combat, you have the ability to sort of see a bit into the future, or more like the game will show you an estimation of what's likely to happen as you chain multiple attacks together. Setting up massive attacks from all your party members one after the other is the name of the game, and it can be really satisfying to pull off. To revitalize this series and make it a contender, I think we need to focus on the things that work. The overall plot is good, and I like the smaller character moments, but the quests you undertake don't often feel very interesting or rewarding. Trim down the number of characters to something more manageable and give us more solid interactions with them. On the gameplay front, the concept is actually really brilliant, but the execution is lacking. In theory, every battle should be unique and fun with a system like this, but it never quite works out that way. It can get pretty repetitive. There's also the Furyu jank in there, which doesn't bother me too much, but probably helps keep their games from appealing to a wider audience. This one is so cool as a premise, and it has some solid music, but it needs some effort to get it to the level of something that can appeal to more people. As someone who loved the story and presentation of Crystar, I was really excited for Crymachina. After all, it kind of felt like I was getting exactly what I'm asking for in this video, for a game I love to get another chance at hitting a bigger audience. The problem ended up being that this was sort of a monkey's paw wish for me. I wanted a game that would improve on the lackluster gameplay from Crystar, and I got it in Crymachina. But in exchange, I had to lose everything I loved about Crystar in the first place. See, for me, the story, and in particular the vocal performances, were what drew me into Crystar. The cast was great, the story was twisted and interesting. It's exactly what I needed to bring me through the repetitive gameplay and keep me hooked for the duration. Crymachina lost that. I mean, the story was still good and interesting, but a lack of English voice work essentially robbed me of the ability to fully connect with the characters. Maybe you have an easy time relating to characters that are speaking a different language presented to you via subtitles, but I don't. So to me, that was the death knell for this game. How to fix it? Simple. Honestly, they could fix Crymachina right now if they somehow could release a patch with English acting. That would do it. I would plow through that game exactly like I plowed through Crystar. They had already made significant strides toward improving the gameplay and the environments. There's still some work they could do on that end, but the trend was positive. I know there's a good-sized subset of JRPG players that either just prefer subtitles with Japanese voices or outright think English dubbing is the worst thing that's ever happened. You're of course free to feel that way, but like it or not, a big portion of the potential audience for these games is going to be turned off without an English dub. I include myself in that audience. Not having an English dub doesn't mean I won't play a game necessarily, but in the case of Crymachina at least, it meant I gave up halfway through. Even though the story was intriguing and I was, and I'll admit, still am curious as to where it's going, I wasn't bonding with the characters. Without that, I honestly don't care how intriguing a story or a premise might be. I'm not invested. Closing off the Furyu trilogy here, Reynatis. This was a game that took an absolute beating in the review space. Critics hated it with, and I'll be honest here, what felt like a little too much passion to me. Like, I played the game too. There's nothing in there that's so egregious to warrant a lot of the blowback it received. It's a solid 7 out of 10 game like most on this list. The biggest highlight for me is the story by Kazushige Nojima, the writer of Final Fantasy VII and X. He tells a story about a modern day world where wizards exist, like Harry Potter, but mixed with apartheid. Wizards' movements and actions are highly regulated, and there's an entire branch of the police force whose job it is to keep wizards in line. The combat is action-based, and it introduces a new dodging mechanic that plays super differently to almost every other action RPG out there, and it allows you to switch between a completely defensive focused position and one completely focused on attack. What should we do with this one? Well, an English dub, for one. The Japanese didn't bother me quite as much, since at least the game does take place in modern-day Japan, but still, English would go a long way to making this more relatable as a story. The gameplay is pretty solid, but I think a few more passes to add some polish would help a lot. Like I said, the mechanics are pretty different than most action RPGs, so your skills at, say, Nier Automata aren't necessarily going to translate one-to-one here. Personally, I liked that, but if the goal is to get this accepted by more people, then I guess pulling things more in line with other games like it might be the better call. There's such a cool world and interesting gameplay here, I'd love to see more from it, so here's hoping the team can keep it going with some extra work to sand off the rough edges. After the triumphant remasters of Suikoden 1 and 2, naturally, I started wanting a refreshed look at Suikoden 3. This is my favorite Suikoden, and I know how weird that is considering Suikoden 2 exists. And that's a great game too, don't get me wrong, but I connected with 3 in a way that no other Suikoden game managed to make me do. For one, I love the 3 main characters and the ability you have to switch between them one chapter at a time. This is yet another Suikoden story of epic war, so there's a lot going on, a ton of moving pieces, but the core cast of characters is really endearing and cool. The game made some controversial changes to the combat system. Now, instead of controlling 6 characters in battle at once, you control 3 teams of 2. So you've still got 6 characters out there, but functionally, you're dealing with 3. This one was decently reviewed when it came out. Some people even loved it, but it feels like that reception has kind of cooled over time. Now it's sort of seen as a black sheep in the series. A remake would be great, but it would definitely need to be more than Suikoden 1 and 2 received. For one thing, and I'm not a stickler for graphics, but the game looks like trash. I'm sorry, the animations look like student caliber work. And by that, I mean students on their first day of school. Like, this is the sort of animation that any animation teacher would give a failing grade to. The sort of chibi-fied character models are okay, but I think a story with the sort of weight to it, like a Suikoden has, demands a more realistic style. Yeah, even for the sentient duck people. On the combat side, just bring back control of all 6 party members, and I think you have a winner. I like the chaos of the battles with everyone moving around freely, but having the ability to control each character is key. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Suikoden is actually making a comeback. Hopefully the remaster sold well, and hopefully the anime rendition of Suikoden 2 is a solid performer. This is a really special series, and I would love to see it revitalized. That's it. What do you think? Any that I missed? Let me know your personal 7 out of 10s that you'd like to see improved and how you'd improve them down in the comments. If you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, that really helps me out a lot. And also, if you're into podcasts, check out mine. It's called the JRPG Pursuit, and we put out episodes every single week about JRPGs. If you're into comedy, and also if you're not a kid, I have another podcast called 4 Guys on a Train that comes out every other week. Links to both of those are down in the description. All right, well, with that, hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. Take care.